Hey guys, this podcast called Pure Cardio has some information about health. As we are not qualified physicians, we would ask for you to check with your doctor before trying any of the things that we discuss in this podcast. Thanks.
The 50-minute rundown.
Okay, so this is our third podcast. We're going to be talking about cardio, triathlon, all that stuff. With me, I have Mr. Bangs, Steve.
Of course.
Yep, and our newest guest, Mark. Steve, did you want to talk about your cold real quick?
Actually, it's not a cold. I've been trying to train for a half Ironman the last couple weeks, and during week 3, I was swimming and had an allergic reaction to chlorine. And I've read a little bit about it. Apparently, chlorine evaporates a little bit, and so a thin layer of air will have a lot of chlorine, and chlorine is kind of toxic. I bought a nose clip now, so I have to decide whether or not I want to continue.
And Mark, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mark Miller, third year mechanical engineer here at UC. I actually just started up the UC Triathlon Club. I'm the president. Our main goal is to get people ready for sprint and Olympic size or distance triathlons. So what we do is we get together and practice 3 to 4 times a week and figure out kind of where everyone's at and push forward to get ready for those type distances.
So when did you guys become official?
We actually became official about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Good semester.
Yeah, so we've been working on it since early October and getting all the paperwork together and just kind of finally came together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a question about the paperwork. The Constitution and the bylaws, did you determine a difference between those two?
Well, I did I didn't do either Constitution or bylaws. I did the risk management, which dealt with mainly, if we're out, on a bike ride or something and a thunderstorm pops up, what are we going to do? What are our safety precautions? What can we do? But from what I saw of the Constitution and bylaws, they're pretty much the same. It's just a lot of, I guess, legal issues, liability type instances.
So, how many people are involved with it right now, would you say?
Right now we have about 18 people, which is a great showing for what we expected. We kind of got people scrounging them up from the engineering groups that we're in, and we had a great turnout for our first couple meetings, and we've gotten up to 18 people. We're hoping to actually expand and get up to about 30 or 40. That's our goal, but that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time.
So,
yeah.
Wow, that would be
18
great.
still pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, I mean for
3 weeks.
Yeah, for the first 3 weeks to have 18 people, I was ecstatic. The first couple meetings we've had, they've been absolutely great. It was like, wow, every time we've had a new face. So that was really cool to kind of see.
So, sorry.
And I was just going to say that, we haven't done any advertisement yet either. We have a Facebook page. We're going to get a Twitter, probably get a Google account, Google group. But, once we start getting that together, hopefully it'll really expand and get pretty exciting.
Well, it sounds like it's a real unmet need at UC. I had never, looked into whether there was a triathlon club, but it can attract from so many different areas.
Right. The reason I got the idea was because in the few triathlons that I have done, I was talking with a guy that was finished with me, and he was saying how he had done these indoor triathlons and how UC doesn't have a showing there. And I had asked him why. He said, well, Miami, OSU, all of them have triathlon clubs, and UC doesn't have one. So that day, I was like, well, shoot, why not make one? Get it together. So, and then I emailed and contacted both the president of the university and the student body president, asking for some help and kind of what the process would be. And lo and behold, 2 other guys were trying to do the same thing right at the same time. I met those guys that way.
That's so convenient instead of trying to force it through on your own. So that's...
Yeah, it was great because the paperwork is a pain, to be honest. It's the legal stuff, I'm going to tell you guys right now, is not fun. Have fun with that.
Yeah. Important that it's there, but not something that you want to be involved in the process of creating necessarily. But, So have you noticed, I know it's only 18, is there any trend in the people involved? So is it a lot of engineers or a lot of swimmers? Or?
Right now there are mostly engineers.
You mean men-engineers?
Yeah, men-engineers. Hey, we have a few girls on this team. No, but it's mainly engineers, and they it was because of the people we know. Because I am a mechanical engineer, and those two guys are engineers as well. So we pulled out the people that we knew. We're hoping to get more of a diverse group. Mainly, though, they are previous cross-country runners in high school.
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't have very many bikers, but we have a lot of swimmers. We have
Gotcha.
a couple guys from UC swim team on there.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's really exciting. They can't practice with us, and they won't be able to practice with us until the end of March, until their season's over. But once that happens, we're really looking forward to training with the swimmers.
Right. That seems like a real advantage, because when a lot of beginner triathletes, swimming is their weakness. And so having people there who can give critiques, that seems really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, they train, for competition, so you can't get better advice, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
like a lot of runners or bikers coming into triathlons, there's sports that there are like some technical aspects to it, but it's really about throwing yourself into it and getting like the long-term training. Whereas if you do that with swimming, you're going to seriously screw up your stroke. Like, it's just more time is going to equal worse form and just going to go downhill if you're not.
Right.
Really
well, especially with swimming, it's just you get better with the more you're able to swim. It's more of an endurance. It's endurance, because you have to build up your swim endurance to keep your form while you swim.
Right.
Because swimming's not about necessarily speed; it's about efficiency and how efficient you are on the water.
Right.
And how little you're. Whereas with running and biking, it's more about that power through each stroke or each stride.
Right.
Swimming is more about the elongation of your stroke.
Sure.
And strong kick.
Reducing drag. I was reading somewhere that water is 800 times more dense than air. I didn't check up on that.
Depends what temperature.
Right. But the idea is, a lot harder to get through. So recently, over break, Mark and I started conversing about triathlons, because I heard about he was into it. And I saw on Amazon, just a little promo for Amazon if they want to sponsor us. But Amazon Kindle you can get on your phone or computer or any device. And so I was looking at what books they have. Every month they have 100 books that are under $4. I was just glancing through, and one of them was How to Train for an Ironman, called Be Iron Fit. So I was like, well, this sounds like a convenient way to test the system.
Good deal, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just kind of wanted to cover some of the ideas I've learned from that. Obviously, I mentioned before, I'm only 3 weeks into my training. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to fully commit for the half, but these are just, I think, interesting ideas to think about if you are ever interested in doing like a long-distance Ironman. So first thing, when you're considering an Ironman or any sort of long-distance triathlon, there's two big factors, money and time. And so these are like real limiters for a lot of people. A lot of people realize there's money involved in like investing in equipment and taking care of injuries and all that, but actual long-distance triathlons cost a lot of money. So there's like official Ironman sponsored events, which is a specific company, not just the distance. And then there are indie races, and there's a significant cost difference between that. So like an actual Ironman full distance is over $5,000 just to enter.
Wow.
And
wow.
Shocking. I was looking December just as like a fantasy if I could sign up for the Ironman at the beginning of August or end of July.
Right.
And they open up a year before and they sell out within hours. So you have to have that.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. You have to know your ahead of time with your $5,000 where you're going to be the next year and that you're going to be able to train and be there.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think about travel too, because they're not everywhere. They're the closest one to us is in Louisville for the Ironman.
Definitely.
Distance.
Yeah.
So you got to factor in maybe a plane ticket on top of that, so maybe another $1,000.
And and they recommend staying at a hotel a couple nights before just so you're
accommodated. Yeah.
You don't want to train for over half a year and then because you were on the plane or whatever the day before, then you're just not rested and screwed up.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, like, I'm not entirely sure of what all the advantages of the different areas are, but if you're like going to Florida, they have a really fast swim. So based on your strength, if you're like trying to qualify for Hawaii or something, that's just another dimension to think about. What are the hardest elements?
And the reason for that is down in Florida, they have their triathlon is actually, the swim is actually around an island, and it's in a bay area, the current actually pulls you around. It goes around with the current. So it's a faster swim because you have that current with you.
Right.
And it's also flat down there, so then the bike is a lot easier than if you're out in like Colorado or something trying to bike.
So make sure if you're flying down, fly down there.
Fly down there to try to make it.
But it's also especially hot. So if you're not used to training in like the really hot, then the long bike could be an issue as well.
Right.
So, and then the other aspect is time. And so this is a big reason why people don't get into it. But there are a couple of techniques you can use to cut it down. It doesn't actually have to be that much. Some of the training plans, if you're in a just finish training plan, your weekly average might only be 7 hours, and in the peak of your training could be 10 hours.
Really? That's it?
That's it. Yeah. Wow. This is like the culmination of 30 weeks of training. So you've really built up your stamina. But if you strategically position your workouts so they build on each other, then it's quite possible.
Wow. Okay. Does the book kind of explain that in detail?
Yeah. So there's this guy's coached, I think, for 30 years, or he's been involved in Ironman events for 30 years or so. And he's noticed a trend in everyone he's worked with. There's 5 time savers. So one is to train time, not miles. So there's a little bit I'll go into later, but the idea of training by heart rate zones, so you're getting the most out of your workout, time efficient wise.
Right.
And so you're going to say, well, I'm going to go run for an hour instead of trying to hit a certain mileage. And so you can plan it out in your schedule much more efficiently instead of committing to running 10 miles and then for whatever reason it takes 2 hours or however.
Right.
Well, and not only that, along with that, at least for what I've found for when you do time is you're not as hard pressed to go faster because you're like, I want to make a time. If you set a certain mileage, you try to make a certain time then. So if you just set, hey, I'm going to go out and bike for an hour and a half, then you go out and you bike and you're not pushing yourself to, try to make a certain mileage because you don't know normally when you're on the bike. I don't have anything to kind of tell me. So it makes training a lot more
stress-free.
Stress-free is a great word for it.
Yeah.
Another element is indoor training. So instead of having to maybe take your bike and go somewhere and train, or you can't really do indoor. I guess you have to do. I was thinking swimming. You can't really do it in your place, but like biking, you can actually take your bike, and they have a special mount that you can put your bike on and actually push it there, and so you're getting the direct simulation. The one issue with that is it can tend to like burn out your one tire.
Right. I mean, actually, one thing I should comment. I'm a little bit rogue on this, but so what I do is I have a spin bike in my room, and I just take a couple cinder blocks, put them around it, and then put my table on top of it, and so I can like do all my work while biking because I just have a wireless keyboard and mouse, have my computer screen in front of me, and just get hours of work done. And I do that usually on a daily basis. I kind of let it up this semester just because of other factors, but I did this for like years, where I just would get all my work done in one sitting, quote unquote.
Wow. That's actually really interesting. That's a great idea. I'll have to kind of look into doing that.
Yeah, it motivated me enough to buy the spin bike to do it in the first place. Actually, what I did before this is I did a treadmill and I just walked on it and put a desk, kind of like the treadmill desk type of thing.
Okay.
But I found with the bike that A, it's a lot quieter, so you can like talk to other people on the phone if you have projects you have to work on. And B, you can change the resistance on it. So as you kind of warm up, you're knowing a lower resistance. And by the time you like really want to get into your workout, you can crank it up as much as you want. So with a treadmill, though, you can't like run and mouse click. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's kind of my indoor strategy in my room. So that's for convenience as well. So,
and also, it would be impossible to study with low energy if you're on a bike while you're doing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So.
Another one is lunchtime workouts. I guess this is more for people with 8 to 5 jobs or 9 to 5 jobs, but you have that hour time slot or whatever. You can go and get in one of your run because usually you're doing multiple things in one day. Another is master swimming sessions. So you actually, I guess it's really affordable. They're all over the place and a way to get some real swimming technique. Or you could join your local triathlon club.
Yep.
And also early bird workouts, so you're more likely to get the workouts done if you do them in the morning. It makes you feel great for the rest of the day because oftentimes this will be like your big goal or challenge of the day.
Yeah.
And also,
No, I can attest to that one because I did when I was on co-op. I'd get up at 5:30 every morning, and I'd go. I'd actually lift because part of training is not only just your cardio, but you got to keep other parts of your body in shape as well.
For sure.
So I would go lift in the mornings for an hour before work, and that was one of the things I look forward to most in my day, was going before work to go work out, and then getting back and then doing my cardio after work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, I got to talk about this too, because that's exactly what I've done, like, ever since freshman year. Like, so basically my strategy is, unfortunately the gym only opens up at 6. I wish it opened up earlier.
Yeah.
But basically what I do is, I'm not like a serious guy. Like, I probably could not pull off a half Ironman. But what I do is I just kind of wake up around like 5:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, and just hit the gym. And what I do is I call this like study workout. So I just bring like my iPad or Kindle and hit elliptical for like an hour, and just kind of do all my studying on the iPad on elliptical. Then for about a half hour I'm on like a Strider machine, and that's kind of another exercise machine, and I do whatever, memorizing Spanish or studying biology or biochem or whatever it is. So that's about an hour and a half of sheer cardio, and then I after that do about a half hour of like stretching and weights afterwards. So all that is like 2 hours. So by the time that's said and done, it's about 8 a.m. So when you think about it, you're kind of like starting when everybody else is. Like, usually everybody else is like getting up at 8 a.m.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I totally attest to that, though. If you do it in the morning, there's nothing getting in your way. Like, it's going to get done.
Right. That's a big issue with training of any sort, is when you get home from work, you don't want to do it because, well, it's been a long day, or you had an issue or something, and it's just you're tired. And
you're hungry.
You're hungry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm always hungry.
It's always hungry. Agreed. So then you wouldn't get, you don't get to work out until 7 o'clock at night, and then it's just screwing up your whole schedule. The thing I really like about working out in the morning too is, like you said, you get up when everyone else is getting, you're getting out, I should say. But also, you are more productive throughout the day because you did get that workout in the morning.
Yeah.
So then you'll be, if you get that one in the morning, then you're more likely to do the one later on that night.
Right.
So I really enjoy morning workouts.
Yeah. Also, I would say about the morning workout is that you can kind of get in, like, quote unquote, a secondary workout as well, if you're just kind of like trying to lose weight or stay fit or something like that. Whereas you might like do your morning workout for like 2 hours in the morning, but then like if something else comes out, like the guys want to play basketball or you play tennis or anything else, you get that as well. It's like you get even more exercise. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So for me, that's more important because I'm just trying to stay fit and be productive. But
well, I think that's all our ultimate goal here is to stay fit, and it's just what your overall goal is what you're kind of striding for. You said that you could not do a half Ironman. I think you can easily do it if you set your mind to it. I know you can. So
okay, well,
yeah. So for longer events, of course, you have to really put in the time and energy. And so there's a couple guidelines you want to consider when you're looking at different workouts. There's a lot of different workouts online that would probably be good. But as a general guideline, you don't really want to go more than 3 days without doing a particular sport, especially swimming. Like, you'll lose the muscle memory of doing that sport and won't be able to build on all the progress.
Really? You lose the muscle memory?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, to a certain extent. And also, you want to try and alternate high and low intensity days. So you get your system used to both, and you're able to get better at recovering. You want to keep surprising the body. Yeah, so there's just a couple things.
Yeah.
Looking at a weekly schedule.
One thing, or I was going to say, Mark, I wanted to ask you and Steve, I guess a lot of training programs, especially for running, is like you might be going, maybe 60%, but then for, maybe quarter of a mile, you're going 90%, and then you go back to 60, and then you go back to 90. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a strategy that you use? Or?
I really enjoy HIIT training, high intensity interval training. it really gets your heart racing. Like if you're, whenever you're trying to climb a hill on the bike or something, it really prepares you for that. It really builds a lot of muscle, and it's a very quick thing normally. Because for at least for biking, I'll do 60 seconds high intensity, and then 75 just kind of a breather. And my heart rate stays like it's resting is at 140, and then when I get completely through by the end, I do 12 sets of that. And about the 12th set, my heart rate's sitting about 170, 175. So you really get moving and get that heart pumping and blood pumping, and it does definitely shock your body. And throwing that in there is just a great way, because if you do just long distances all the time, I found that you plateau. Because your body is very adaptable, and if you do not continue to challenge it, it'll adapt, and you'll get stuck there. So throwing that in is definitely important. But and also, even for running, I haven't started this yet, but when eventually I want to work in a day where I'm just going to walk for 60 to 75, maybe 2 hours. Get on a treadmill, because it's not as much impact, but you're still up on your feet, you're still moving around, so that's very important. Just like with any of the other exercises, it's more about the time you spend doing it than it is about necessarily your speed or your intensity. So on those low intensity days, if you want to walk, or if you want to do a walk run kind of combination, that's always a great thing.
I agree with you. I think for walking, especially for me, I remember like when I was workout studying, just walking, having a treadmill in my room, and I just walk and study on the computer. I remember just thinking like I could go forever, and I would walk for like 3 hours, and like I'd be like, wow, I probably burned at least a couple cheeseburgers, because and you don't even notice it. Like, and so I think that I did that like in the evening. That was like my secondary workout after the main one in the gym, and I just found that when you are distracted by something else, when you have to think about something else, you can go endlessly. You can keep going and going and going and really push yourself.
And when I talk about walking, I don't we're not talking necessarily a slow walk where just kind of looking around, but I normally do something about 3.5 or 4 mile an hour. It's a fast paced walk. It's so you are still burning the calories, but you can you're not putting that pressure again on your knees, and you can go for a whole 2-3 hours. Like I've watched movies while I've been I'm walking on a treadmill, and it's like, shoot, where did the time go?
Right, exactly.
I like to mix it up just for variety myself, but this kind of relates to one of the other topics I wanted to talk about, or I guess it's the same thing, but aerobic versus anaerobic energy systems. Your aerobic energy system, Nick could probably describe this better than I can, but it utilizes oxygen and stored fat for power, and so you have almost endless supplies of that. So if you're performing within your aerobic range, you can do that forever, and that's actually the range when you're talking about long distance triathlons. You want to be in that aerobic range. That's versus anaerobic, which is the really high intensity stuff, and that utilizes stored sugar, which you have a short supply, so you're gonna quickly burn out.
So for those who are not familiar, I'm kind of like the biology guy here, but so what happens is that anaerobic means just no oxygen, and aerobic means oxygen. So you can kind of equate aerobic to cardio and anaerobic to like weightlifting. And what happens is your body uses ATP or sugars initially for any immediate movement or actions that you need to do. But after a while, it can't sustain your stored ATP amount, and so it switches to another process to kind of give you energy. And that process involves burning the fat and using oxygen. That's why it's aerobic.
Right.
And so that kicks in about a minute after continuous exercise. So.
And I know from my own research that this switch it's not a quick step. You go straight from aerobic to anaerobic. You're actually doing both almost all the time. It's just one's 95% and the other one's anaerobic's like 5%. You're always using some of it, and you do have a limited store. That store for most people is about an hour and a half, 90 minutes.
Yeah, and then you hit a wall. The wall, that's what they call.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
I definitely hit the wall. It's kind of an interesting thing. You get very lethargic. You're about, maybe you're out on the bike or run or something, but you feel like, all your muscles are done.
Right.
They're just burnt out. And honestly, that is one of the hardest things to get over. Once you've done that a couple times, you understand, but you need a certain mental toughness to be able to keep going after you've gone past the wall and everything.
Right. I think one thing, a radio lab did a podcast about this, and they were kind of talking about when you hit the wall or when you feel depleted of energy, you're actually not. You have a huge reservoir of energy that your brain is secretly hiding from you, because this energy is only supposed to be used in very desperate situations, such as like bear chasing you type of thing.
Right.
So basically, what happens is if you can trick your mind into thinking this is a bear type situation, it will allow you to use that energy. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is to trick your mind into thinking you're about to receive more energy so it can expend more. So some professionals, they'll take Gatorade and swish it in their mouth, but they won't actually swallow it. And what happens is your body thinks, wow, I'm just getting all this sugar and electrolytes. Well, this is great. I can go a little bit further. And so that trickery almost activates or allows you to, harness energy that you probably couldn't have access as easily. So,
yeah, Don talks about this no man's land, so it's in between the two. And he says in order to avoid that, you want to calculate your heart rate zones. And so you can go have this tested, or you can calculate it by taking 220, subtracting your age. And so to figure it out, I'm 22, so my max heart rate would be 198. And then you can calculate your 4 zones. So like your anaerobic zone is 90 to 95% of your total heart rate. So for me on my runs, if I want to practice that, I would be between 178 and 188. Zone 3, which is the middle zone, this is the zone where you're not completely anaerobic, not completely aerobic, which is not efficient training for long distance triathlons. That's 86 to 89%. So I try and avoid like the 170s. Zone 2, 75 to 85% of your total. This is where most of your long distance triathlon training is going to be. Mine is like 149 to 168. And then zone 1, 65 to 74, you can supplement with that, but not a lot of your training is going to happen down there. And then for bike, it's the same thing, except you take another 5% off. So I never really paid attention to heart rate zones for training for this. I would just kind of do what feels good. The issue with that is most people, for aerobic exercising, doesn't feel challenging to them, and so they try and up it. But anaerobic is too uncomfortable to actually stay there. Right. So they end up staying in that middle zone, which is actually a bad zone to be in.
Is that zone 3?
That's zone 3,
okay.
Yeah, because you're not efficiently exercising either system.
So it's better to stay in zone 2 where you're not going as fast in the beginning, but you continue to go in zone 2 for the entire time?
Zone 2 is performing very high at a comfortable level. And so this is what you're going to be doing for the majority of your race. You are going to occasionally go into zone 4. So like at the beginning of the swim start, or like at a transition, or going up a hill. Yeah.
On that, I didn't pay attention to heart rate my first couple, and over this past summer, and over the winter break, I really did a lot more research into it and kind of looked into all that stuff, and I started actually monitoring my heart rate while I was on the bike or when I was running, and it really does help to allow you to go a lot farther. I didn't realize that until a little late, but without that, I probably you hit a lot more plateaus, and you are disappointed with your results more often.
Yeah.
So just keeping an eye on your heart rate is definitely a huge thing.
What have you found to be the best way to monitor your heart rate?
Well, I would like to eventually buy a heart rate monitor that you can strap to your chest. That I have found. I've used them a couple times. I've borrowed friends. That's definitely the best way to go.
It's the most accurate?
It's most accurate. And you'll get a watch with it. And
that wirelessly tells it?
It tells it where your heart rate's at. So then you can see, just kind of look down at your wrist, and it says, you're in this zone, you're right here, so you know where your zones are at. They also have wristwatches that check your heart rate. These aren't as accurate, but they'll do the trick.
Okay.
And then right now what I do is I use those pads that are on the machines. And they're okay. They're not great. What you got to do with those, though, is you have to do a couple trial runs. What you do is you check your heart rate with those, and then you can go ahead and actually put your fingers to your neck and check your own pulse.
Oh, and then you can
figure out where exactly it is.
Yeah.
So I've done that, and that's what I use as of right now. But a heart rate monitor for a chest one will run you $150 to however much you want to spend. So
how much weight is it? I'm just kind of curious.
It's nothing. It's probably about 2-inch by 3-inch thing that's on the center of your chest, and it's really small. It's maybe an inch thick. Maybe it's like so it's really small, and it's just a nice strap. The first couple times you use it, you might get a little chafing. Like under your armpits, because it's riding right there.
Right.
So using like a petroleum jelly or something like that, just to kind of rub in that area, definitely does help.
Yeah.
But I would, if you're going to get into this seriously, it's definitely something that you should drop money on.
Mm-hmm.
And also, some people use pace, which you think would be consistent, but there's so many factors like hills or wind or altitude, insufficient sleep that make that like you could be overtraining yourself if you're just going on pace and your heart rate is doing crazy stuff. So
right.
that's another reason.
Actually, speaking on that, it was actually 2 summers ago, I was training for a 10K. It was going to be my first 10K, and I was definitely overtraining. And I went out to Colorado, and I was sandboarding with a buddy of mine, and I actually blew out my knee.
Oh, man.
And it was because I had an 80% tear on my meniscus.
Wow.
And the doctor said, this probably wouldn't have happened if you hadn't stressed your body so much. Because I was to the point where, my joints were kind of starting to, really hurt. Not hurt necessarily, but they were starting to get sore, and I could tell that there was, not necessarily the right thing going on. I wasn't doing exactly the right thing. And that's why I've started working in walking as well, because I don't have the greatest joints, and if you supplement in 1 walk a week, that's 1 less hour of impact on your body, your joints.
Right.
So that's very important.
I would also add another thing to prevent joint problems is actually weightlifting, because weightlifting, especially free weights, you want to start off slow and then slowly work your way up. But I've found, for me at least, that I've had a ton of knee problems, but doing a lot of knee exercises with free weights and also just regular machines has really helped my knees tremendously.
And speaking on that, one of the best ones, if you have the correct form of squat. Most people think squat is so bad for your knees and joints. It's actually one of the best exercises for it because of your free weight. Everything has to kind of lock up and be ready for any type of motion in any direction, and that really helps the joint to strengthen itself, so it's ready for when you're out running and you hit a crack and then you twist your knee like that. It's better prepared for stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, he definitely recommends supplementing some strength training in because it builds more power, greater muscular balance, like you were saying, and also protects injury.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. He also talks about 8 different essential workouts. So, of course, you're going to have your long run and your long ride once a week. You're also going to have transition workouts. You want to practice the transition between the bike and the run. The first time you do it, it's going to feel really weird because your legs are going to want to be going in this circular motion. They just need to change their pattern. So you want to practice going with only like 2 minutes in between.
Yeah, in between them.
And also on that the first time you ever do it, it is definitely a very weird feeling, and you will not be able to go very far. And you will be very sore. You might have to take the next day off.
Yeah.
I had to do that because I went, like 5 or 10 minutes on the treadmill after I had warmed up. I did a really easy run and then transitioned to a bike. And actually, what am I saying? Flip that. But just going from because your body is the different positions of your body. When you're in the bike position, you're scrunched over, your back is elongated, and you're really pulling on the muscles in the back and your spine, and you're elongating that. And then to go from that and move on to now you're stretching out your torso, the front of your torso, your abdomen, and you're really striding out instead of having these small revolutions at a fast pace. It's larger revolutions, larger strides, and it's more of a power off instead of a constant, force.
Yeah.
Right.
I think just to add to the topic of like preventing injuries and getting accustomed to new things, like when you transition from a bike to running, one thing that can really help you is actually stretching after exercising, because that will reinforce your joints and allow you to, when you do a transition like that, that sudden change in repetition is a primary cause for injury.
Right.
And I think stretching, especially after you exercise, can only help you reduce that.
Oh, for sure. And when the longer the distance, the way I look at it, the longer the distance, the longer you should be stretching before and after,
right.
To really get your joints, and your body and your muscles loosened back up. And also, you want to when you go home, you want to immediately eat carbs or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Get a good ratio, like a lean meat, and then some bread, some whole grain bread or something,
right,
into your system, so then your body can start to recover immediately. Otherwise, you do get to the point where your body doesn't have enough time, even if you're not necessarily doing too hard of training. Your body doesn't have enough nutrition to replenish your supplies and stores, and you start to overtrain.
Right.
Yeah. And running, like, there's different injuries, of course, for each sport. Like, I guess for swimming, shoulders is the most common area.
Yes.
Running also is for triathletes where most injuries occur because it's the last one, so you're the most fatigued, and so it's easy to get tripped up. Two other workouts, they have high-intensity runs and rides. They also recommend high RPM spin sessions. So this is where you want to be going over 100 revolutions per minute. I've never done any sort of bike races on their own. I've never really hung out with cyclists extensively. I guess there's different debates about what the best setup is, but this author's found that between 80 and 100 revolutions per minute is the most efficient use of your body's power. And you can go below that for hills or above that. But if you're able to maintain that zone, that's pretty good. So what he recommends is that a lot of people are kind of choppy with their pedaling, but he uses this visualization exercise. It's called 90 circles. And so you want to distribute power evenly on the pedals. And so for the first 30 circles, he imagines his left foot making a circle. Then he switches to his right foot. And then the last 30, he visualizes them both. And so after doing this, like if you're going on an hour high RPM spin session, doing this a couple times will really ingrain that in you, so when you're actually out in a race, good form will come naturally.
Another thing that is very similar to that is you can only do this on a stationary bike, but and one with a strap over, of course, but you only put one foot in. You put it on a low resistance, and it is the actual physical movement of just one leg. So then you have to learn how to pull up, do the full rotation with that one leg, and you switch, and then you finally go back to both legs.
Yeah, right. I think another thing, too, that I've just found, at least for me for running, is there's a controversy between like barefoot running and then the regular running. I guess I'm a solid barefoot runner. I do like the Vibram shoes and everything, go a couple laps here and there, but I would just add that, and this just supports triathlons in general, a lot of scientists are now thinking that, or at least a couple at Harvard are thinking that, humans used to actually hunt animals by outrunning them in terms of long distance. So if you look at us, like we don't have like razor sharp teeth or like poison or anything that could really kill an animal.
Right.
The only thing that we're really good at actually is endurance. And so in the Sahara, we would kind of outrun animals to death.
Wow.
And we would track them down for miles. Like we would easily run 13 miles for like, any animal on the plane. And so what happened is you'd think, well, wow, that's kind of insane. They didn't have tennis shoes back then. How would they do that? They would obviously just throw out their knees or their ankles for that matter. And the thing is that in reality, they just ended up going barefoot and doing the toe first stride. And that kind of saved them, and they kind of built up skin beneath their toes, and they were able to kind of get like this solid shoe almost on their feet. But it just kind of goes to support that if you running or doing any cardio, that is what you actually were made to do.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, like 13 miles is not an insane number. That's a regular number.
Yeah.
And that it kind of explains why we're kind of geared to get like the endorphin high when you run. Your body's actually was made, evolutionarily speaking, to get that high so that you can get your food. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
So,
very much so.
It's just a theory I should clarify, but to me, it makes a lot of sense.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
I think that, and then also to go in with that, strength training, back in the day, they had to carry that all the way home. So they, instead of lifting, weights a bunch, they would carry an animal home, and that's how they stayed fit. So,
wow.
I mean, that makes sense.
And full. But
Yeah.
And the two other workouts are, of course, swim sessions where you're focused on technique, and then having at least one rest day.
Yeah.
Is really important.
Right. So, yeah, we got about maybe 8 minutes left. So I don't know if there's some final concluding thoughts that you guys were thinking, like, you got to know this if you're trying to triathlon or something like that.
The main thing is that I stress to anyone is you need to set goals. That's huge, because if you do not set, you can have a large goal, but what you need to also do is you need to set minor goals for yourself throughout your training. Just try, test yourself some days and stuff, and just so then you can see where you're at in regards to where you want to be. Sometimes you'll be happy, and sometimes you'll be disappointed. But either way, that is motivation in my mind to work that much harder. Just keep training on that level. The big thing also is we haven't talked much about swimming, but for me, swimming, a lot of people just jump in and they swim 500 yards or 800 yards or a long distance, and that's great. Having that type of workout in there is good, but the better thing to do is actually to cut that up and set times for yourself. So, you'll do hundreds, you'll do 10 hundreds instead of, 1,000. And what that does is it allows you to keep that pace. You can say, I want to make a certain pace on that, and you cut it up into these hundreds intervals and keep that. You're more able to keep that pace and keep time off of that. And then also your form doesn't break down as much when you are doing these shorter distances, because you're focused more on the form instead of staying alive, I guess.
Right.
Also with that, with swimming, a thought process with that is, if I do freestyle, all I have to do is freestyle and I'll be okay. And yes, you can just do freestyle, but it is so much better to do all four strokes. Mainly, you don't have to do every one, but mainly backstroke is a great one, because it uses your muscles in the opposite direction,
right,
in a sense, and it stretches them out. So then you're stretching out your back and everything. So you always want to supplement in at least backstroke into it. I like to do a whole IM or individual medley. Do all four strokes. So butterfly, breaststroke, backstroke, and freestyle. Just because that variety builds muscles in other areas, and it's all for cardio. So it helps in some way or another. And then the other thing is, a lot of people, I personally do not like kick. But that that is a big thing. If you have a steady kick, a strong kick, that can get you through a race, because not all of them are going to be indoor. Some of them will be in open water. You'll be hitting waves and all that. So that is kind of like your constant motor. Gotcha. Your arms are help, but that's always back there just to keep you going and keep you on straight and whatnot.
Yeah. One comment on that, for like an Ironman where you're doing a 112 bike and a marathon right after, they recommend doing more arms in that case, just because you want to save your legs a little bit.
Right.
But
right. No, I am a mainly arms guy when I go to swim, but having a strong kick is necessary. It's less efficient, but what it does is if you need that quick burst of energy to break a wave or something, you can easily do that.
Right.
And you do need it in an open water swim. I don't know if you've ever done one, but your arms do get tired pretty quick, even though it's more efficient. So being able to supplement in, going from all arms or mostly arms to some legs to give your arms a rest is very important for those longer distances as well.
Yeah, I've done a couple open swims. My last, I did Olympic triathlon. I used breaststroke on that. I was the only one. So the advantage was I knew I could see exactly where I was going, which is something people just swimming in the pool aren't used to. And also I could breathe easily. But this time I'm really focusing on freestyle. But yeah, that's...
and speaking on that, when you do those open water swims, you do need to learn how to sight yourself. So when you go out, you need to be able to lift your head up. I know it's against code normally from when you're actually learning swimming, but you need to be able to look up and look out onto
where you're
find
going.
out where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I would just like to say, people who have never thought about doing a triathlon, everyone's a learner in a triathlon for a certain extent. Everyone usually comes from a different background, so you're going to have runners who don't know anything about swimming who are going to come in and start as a complete newbie and learn from scratch. And so you're going to find people who are interested in learning new things, and everyone is going to have their strengths and weaknesses. So I find it like a really attractive crowd to hang out with for that reason.
No, I've just found in endurance anything, the crowd is usually very welcoming. They're not there to shut you out or anything like that. They're just there to help you, and they're just excited that you're trying to do this.
Exactly. They're very encouraging, and that's what probably is one of the coolest things about these longer distances, is because you're all there for the same goal, to finish. It is a competition, but it's more of a competition with yourself than it is with the people around you. So when you pass people and stuff, there's a lot of encouraging, a lot of clapping and hurraying and all that kind of stuff, which is great for when you're doing this type of stuff.
Yeah,
and they're such long events, like it's all temporary. They could be passing you later on the run or something. So it's like you want to encourage each other and build off each other.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to us. One disclaimer we should add is, we're not professionals, so always see your doctor and your physical therapist. We got to say that. We're not professionals. Just ask whoever is your professional caretaker or whomever for advice before you do anything new. But thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoyed and got something out of this. We know we did. So thanks.